welcome to Makeover Monday Viz Review. What week are we in, Charlie?
It's now 43. We're in the home straight.
Jeez, it's been a long year.
It feels like it. It's been a weird year.
The year of my life. Oh, is it sunny where you are?
Sorry, that's my racket.
Oh, it's Does it look sunny out there?
Out here, that's just deceptive. No, it's better rain.
Yeah, we already had a bit of a bucketing down. Anyway, hello everyone who is on board. I'm just trying to see the names.
We got Denise is there, Sarah, Kimberly, Michelle, Chadwick, loads of people.
Very nice, very nice. Denise is always up early and up here on time and everything. So, okay, I think we should get started because I'm taking the liberty of doing a bit of exercise after this. So we do need to finish on time so that I can do exercise and make dinner and be all good. Oh, by the way, I made amazing sourdough baguette. It turned out so good. I'm so pleased with myself.
God, so you eat so well. I just have such average meals all the time. It feels a bit bad.
Oh, don't worry. I just really like cooking. Okay, so you collated a little bit of a collection for us to go through today.
Yep. We've got about 30, big variety again, lots of stuff to go through.
Okay, so we'll do that. I'm going to bring up Lisa and I'm going to let you make a start.
Okay. So, have you got Lisa's up? Cool. So, comet charts seem to be a popular thing at the moment. So, that's what we've got with Lisa this week. So, and it's kind of a good way of doing it. So, when you focus less on the aggregation of the data we had this week, which is at a monthly level, she's just kind of summed up, okay, what's the total value for 2019 against 2020? And it paints the very clear picture of this data that the way that these brands in America have stopped paying for stuff that they've ordered has a huge impact on all of these countries. And the comet chart shows it really, really well. It's quite a good way of doing it because you can clearly see the direction of travel of all of them. It's from higher value to a lower value. So I think in terms of an at a glance, simple view of it, it does the job really, really well. I think there's a couple of questions that I would always ask because that's kind of what I have to do. So the scale at the bottom doesn't explicitly show that it's in billions of dollars. So it's a simple little thing, just change the formatting of the scale to make that a little bit more clear. And then I'm always a bit unsure when you've got a heading which says this is based on exports in billions of dollars, but then you have a percentage sign on the label, because then it's not the same thing, because obviously the percentage is relative to its initial value. So the length of the comet isn't necessarily exactly the same as the percentage that you're showing. So it's just a bit of a confusing jumble of different metrics.
So the comet, because I have to admit, I haven't done this visualization yet. I've written my blog post, but I have not looked at the data. I just have been a bit overwhelmed this week. So the units on the x-axis are billion US dollars?
Yeah.
Okay. Because so I hovered over one of the comets and the tooltip's definitely updating because there is an A field. I don't know what that does. I wonder. But also the exports. So it says USD millions, 3.3, but then exports 2020 is 3,272. So that would then be 3,000 million, which is 3 billion, which is fine. But I think just the units need tidying up. And like Charlie said, having a label on the axis to say this is actually in billion US dollars would be really helpful.
Yeah, but it's a nice clean start.
Yep. Okay. And I think we have to, okay. And then we have data visualized.
Yeah, this is the first ever.
Welcome.
So Ronald is the real name of data visualized. So we've got kind of like a combination of a heat map and a bar chart. So we've got apparel exports to the US plummeting due to COVID-19. So the heat map showing by year and by month and by country the movement, and then effectively underneath is just duplicating that. So that's the one thing I'm always mindful of. If you're presenting information, don't necessarily present the same information twice. So I don't think the heat map's particularly simple to read because of its layout. So you've got like that jump for Bangladesh for March 19. You've got to go over 5 cells to get to March 2020. So it's not so easy to directly compare. I think the bar chart's a more easy comparison to make because you've only got that like one value for Bangladesh in March. So I think I prefer the bar chart instinctively. And I think I would just switch stuff around. So rather than having each country for each month, I would just have each month for each country, if that makes sense. So it's a slight spin on things, but I'd rather see March, April, May, and June for Bangladesh in one panel and then go on to El Salvador, March, April, May, June, just so you get that continuity for each country.
Yeah, so just switching the two fields around in the columns.
Yeah, so I would probably do that, and I wonder if there's the need for that color scale on the bars, because we often talk about, is there a need to double encode stuff? If a bar does it by length, does it need color too? Not really that sure. But I think for a first submission, it's nice and clear. It's got good headings. It's got clearly divided up sections. There's no particular clutter, so I think it's probably just settle down on what you think the best way to present the information is and only show it once.
Absolutely, yeah. No, well done, Ronald. Looking forward to seeing more of your visits. And then we have Brittany, who, I don't know if she's online. I don't know if I've seen her, but she has a, she's in Seattle, so early morning for her. Apparel exports to US down in 2020. So the first thing I notice is that I'm reading this as apparel exports to us down because it's all capitalized and then US doesn't stand out. So maybe making it USA just to make it unmistakable. And you know what, Charlie? What I noticed today is I built a viz in Tableau and I had to define the country field manually. So I typed in United. I wanted to type in United States, but while the UK is United Kingdom, the USA are USA rather than United States of America. So very surprising. But anyway, I like this. I think this is quite neat.
I think it's cool. And it's like, when we refer back to Ronald's one, where we say, try not to show the same information in a couple of ways. What Brittany's done is really super condense it. So you can simply see for each country and each month, what's the shift been in each month, and it's totally simple. And you can see, look at El Salvador, that dark color, you're drawn to it. So they've had all sorts of trouble, particularly from April onwards. Honduras is the same, less of an impact in Vietnam, but it's so clear, isn't it? It's just such a compact way of doing it. I think if I were to change anything, you've got these arrows for up and down, but you've also got this signage in front of the percentages. It feels like it's excessive. So I'd maybe lose the minus sign and just use the arrow instead. Because because the minus is quite hard to see, and there's only one where it went up, and that was in March, so that was probably before the crisis hit. Now, if I zoom out and make it 100%, it's actually quite small, and I downloaded the whole thing because, I might make it a bit taller. You can increase the font size, but one thing, so what I think is really, really cool, that the pattern of the colors, and I don't know if this is deliberate, but it reminds me of fabric. It reminds me of jeans. Oh, yeah.
So one thing I would do is to put white borders in there and see how that
looks. That was all my thinking, was that double negative bend, and white borders would just give it that a little bit more separation.
Yeah, and now, so if we get rid of the minus, where do we have that? So if I formatting, where is that? Where is that? I think it's in the labels, isn't it? No. So the difference calculation. Okay, difference up or down. I'm not sure. Hang on. Interesting. Okay, where do I find my negative?
If you do the formatting of the number.
Yeah, because it just says 1 decimal place. So, I think it must be in the exports, in the default properties, number format. And if we do number custom and negative values.
Yeah, if you just make it 0.0%, it should remove it.
So, hang on. But where do I... hang on. Numbers. But, so she said it as a percentage. So if I now make it... I can't get rid of the negative. Can you?
Normally, if you just do it as custom and do 0.0% and then a semicolon and 0.0%, it should force it.
Oh, custom. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, sorry, what did you say? 0.0%?
If you just do 0.0% and then a semicolon and then just do 0.0% again, it should force it to be positive for whatever happens.
There we go. Okay. Yeah. I think that looks a bit cleaner. Yeah. If I try to make that a bit more central. So one thing I found, and maybe I'm wrong here, but when I right click on things, formatting is not always in the same place on that context menu. Like sometimes it's high up, sometimes it's further down. Anyway, okay, so that was Brittany's viz. Let's move on. Not much to really say. Next one is Ashley Zhang.
And I like this one. So good old bars, my reliable, trustworthy friends, the bars. And I like it because it's, I think bar and bar is such a good way of making these direct comparisons, because it's like, it is more efficient than having bars side by side in my head, because it's just so much easier to see them where things are. So like we've already spotted that the Vietnam March figure was up, and it's really clear. You can just see it. So I love this way of presenting it. I think what we just said for Brittany's with the arrows and the plus and minuses on the values applies here. So it's like there twice. I'd not have that sort of signage twice. So I think about how I would do that. I like the big numbers at the top. I always like to think maybe you can go that a little bit bigger on the big numbers to make them totally in your face. So I'd consider giving those a bit more.
Like filling up the boxes.
Yeah. And then at the side, I think the only thing that stands out for me really is at the side when we've got this total year-on-year difference. They're in uniformly sized like rectangles. I wonder if there would be more value in actually just having those as bars, so that you get a true sense of that scale, just to reinforce it. But maybe Ashley tried that and thought it looked a bit weird if you had those bars beside a whole bunch of other bars. But it's just really nicely laid out, good colours. I like it.
Yeah, I agree. And I wonder, the one thought I had was that the grey and the purple, neither of them are really kind of jumping off the page. They're both, for me, the same level of dullness or brightness, or I forgot the word for it, the actual technical term. So maybe instead of having the bars grey, having them white but with a dark grey or black outline, so that, because while you say, Vietnam stands out, to me it doesn't so much. Maybe that's my eyes. But then it might be easier. I mean, it could be just something to experiment with, just to see how you can do that. And then fixing the, I don't know if the axes are fixed. I think
they look like it.
They probably are. I guess it's just no, it's all good. It's all good. It's just me still working my way through this. Okay, very good.
Right, next up we have Shivam Mittal.
Saturation. Thank you, Denise. I knew these things once. Today has been a bit of a brain fried day. Okay, Shivam. All apparel exports to US. Well, is it all of them? Is that
Sorry?
all of them? Is that all of the exports? I don't think so. I'm sure there's other countries that export to the US.
Oh yeah, it's definitely not all of them. So yeah, always be careful with titles because you can be quite misleading.
Yeah.
Um,
Even just removing the word all is fine,
Yeah.
apparel exports to the US, because that's the topic, and then you can specify that you're looking at specific countries.
So this dashboard is about the value of monthly apparel exports to the US. So a nice simple bar at the start just to show you that scale of the difference. So I like that initial bit. I like the bars over on the right. Sorry, the lines over on the right. They're super easy to interpret. I don't know that the average of the years is massively important. I don't know that I'd necessarily focus on that. And if I'd probably lose that or find a way to color each average line so it mirrors the actual trend line as well of each month. I am drawn to these month over month change bits because they're confusing me because it looks like there's a zero line. So if you look at Honduras, you've got this 90% drop, and then you've got like a 44% drop, but it's over what would appear to be a zero line.
Huh, yeah.
And that confuses me. So I can't.
Plus, I think these month over month changes, I mean, I don't know if it's really relevant to compare April to March or to compare April to last year's April. I think you want to compare year over year rather than month over month, right?
I think the signage is all a bit screwy because I think it's just running like a table calc across the pane or along the table, but yeah, it's showing like a negative value compared to what is that, April or to March, but actually the value's up. So I think there's something funky going on there that I'm too slow to figure out. So I'd almost just question the value of that section at all because you can see the trend with the line charts to the right. It almost feels like it's just filling space.
Yeah, so I like the overall design. I really do. I think it's cool. I like the font. I also like on the right side, like those cards, they're just a bit too squished for me. Like I feel that cool big title, cool big color legend, nice color choice, but there's not enough space. Like there's a lot of vertical space, but not a lot of horizontal space.
Take a look at that x-axis on the line chart.
Oh,
that's freaky, isn't it? I only just spotted it. That's like what's going on there? Because it's not
March, May, April. Like it's not even in reverse order. It's
not reverse. It's not alphabetical. I don't know what it is.
I didn't even notice that at first. Jeez.
No, I was just trying to work stuff out because I've got a bit of a brain freeze day. But yeah, that's not going on right. So I check that out because it totally ruins any sort of sense of the trend, doesn't it? Because you can't tell. Is this month improving to last?
And did I just filter something, or did it just not stay the same? Because in the first one I have June, March, May, April. Then I have June, May, March, April, and then I have March, June, May, April.
Yeah, same here. So it's like that just needs a bit of figuring out.
Because
I know because I deliberately made the dates a little bit tricky to work with this week, just because I thought it'd be nasty. So maybe it was something that tripped up Siobhan. I'm not sure. So I think address that, but the general layout's really good.
Yeah. Okay.
So Luther.
Here we go. Did he get? Oh, he got featured author on Tableau Public.
Nice, well done, Luther.
I think that came out this week. So congratulations on that.
So this one sort of caught my eye because Luther said he was just tinkering with some stuff and he wanted to try out parameter actions. So it makes you click on the months to reveal the data. And so I think it's one of those where it's experimentation and he's learned something, but it just makes the whole process of seeing the data a bit of a pain. And because I'm fundamentally lazy, I don't want to have to click stuff 5 times to see the whole trend over time. So I think it works and it does what parameter actions can do, one of the many things they can do, but it doesn't really add much value to me. It just hinders my understanding of the whole picture.
I agree. I think if you want people to interact, you need to make that obvious because it just has very small font for click on the months to follow the story. I think if you really want them to do it, then make that super, super obvious. Maybe, bit chunk of color, or the arrow also a bit more prominent. But I agree. I prefer it just all being displayed at once.
Yeah, and this is another example where we've got this tandem metric thing. So we've got financial values on the y-axis, but we've got the labels are percentages, and this just could be me being odd, but I do prefer, if you're going to do that, almost do two charts. So do one where we can see the actual value switch and one where we can see the percentage switch, because there's definitely value in seeing that percentage swing. But I just don't want it on the same as the financial swing, because they're not necessarily the same.
Yeah, or maybe even having, the two numbers next to each other, one being in brackets or something.
Yeah.
It's easier.
Yeah, that would soften it.
I need 1 second because the sky looks amazing. I just need to take a quick picture.
Okay.
Let me bring up the next viz. Maybe you can start talking.
You do that. You get the sky.
I can't miss out on these clouds. That would be a crime.
Okay, so
bring up the next one for everyone to see, and zoom in, and then off you go.
Cool. So this is Peter Phillips. So I'm sure if we've had Peter on this review before. So if we have, sorry Peter for forgetting you, and if we haven't, welcome Peter to the Viz Review party. So he's got a large drop in apparel exports to the USA. So nice, clear title. And so when in the data, I didn't actually put this into the data set, but there was this distinction between 3 countries where they've gone through real strict lockdowns in the current climate, whereas Vietnam, Nicaragua, and Bangladesh have had limited or weaker lockdowns. So he's used those sort of data points to highlight the fact that actually the countries where they've had a less strict lockdown haven't exactly emerged scot-free from this dodgy corporate process, but they have suffered less than the likes of India, Honduras, and El Salvador. So I like it because this is like, you can't miss this trend. So you can just see, whoa, Christ, everything's dropping right down. We can see the uptick in June, which hopefully a later viz, if I've been clever enough, will reference, but I probably haven't been clever enough. But I think in terms of clarity, this is spot on, isn't it? Because you can't really get confused.
Yeah, I like that that he's found that story in there. Having a look at how strict were the lockdowns, and it puts all sorts of thoughts in my mind around, well, okay, sure, the other countries may have been able to continue producing and responding to demand, but what about their people, with having less protection? So yeah, but I think this is a good story. I'm not 100% sold on the colors. They are very obviously different in the viz, and nice big tooltips. But when I look at the little description at the top, I mean, I can tell they're different colors, but I always find that the especially this kind of purple looks really pasty pale in text.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So maybe for the text, consider just making it a little smidgen darker, because it actually looks lighter than the lines, but it might just be because it's text rather than a continuous line. So maybe having a play with that. And
this is, I'm so awkward. So like sometimes we whinge and say, oh, look, there's too much clutter or too many grid lines and stuff. But I do think this would benefit from having the axis rulers on, because it just feels a bit too sparse.
Yeah, I think the 0 line would help for sure. Yeah. Just to see, actually, this is where we started, and this is showing the percentage difference. But also, yeah, sometimes you want that anchor, don't you?
Yeah, so you could either do the axis rulers, or like you've said, just have the 0 line and then maybe grid lines running across the page, not the whole rows and column grid lines, but just running across to give them a bit of a reference point.
Yeah.
But okay. Yeah, nice and simple.
Well done, Peter. And then we have Sheila. I don't know if Sheila has submitted to this review before, because I don't recall that name.
No, I didn't. So I thought I would include Sheila for her moment in the sun, the glory of it all. So what we've got here is apparel exports to the US plummet 16 billion, which is a ridiculous number I can't even think about. amid the pandemic as brands refuse orders and demand pricing concessions. So big, wide. I think that's the first thing that stands out. It's quite wide, isn't it? It's the line chart's really wide. I can't say wide again just to say that. So we can see 2019 to 2020, the drop off by month. So it's quite an interesting choice to have the months in different colours. And I think it works really well because you can see actually year on year, the impact for March is relatively low. But as soon as you get to April, it's really ramped up. June, there's an improvement relative to May, but it's a different way of presenting that switch year on year. So I think that works reasonably well. And we've got a filter so we can just choose individual countries or everything overall. I do think there's quite a lot here, so I don't really know what to look at. So I like the line chart at the top, apart from it being wide, which I've said several times now, because it's really clear. But I'm trying to get my head around the relationship between these bars and the text table at the bottom, because I don't know what it's actually meaning. So if I select Bangladesh, I can see there's a 9 mm, so I don't know what millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what the mm means, but I'm also not sure what the 9 means. Is it saying, or is it 9 million? No, it's not that, because that would be ridiculous. So it's not immediately clear, because if it was the year-on-year difference in March exports, then I wouldn't expect the numbers to be quite as big as some of these. They seem, I can't tie them into what's on the text table on the right. So I don't know if I'm being very slow. Maybe we should do a viz review in the morning once.
Yeah, maybe we should. So if I click on, which country did you click on?
I've got Bangladesh.
Okay, if I click on that, nothing changes. Oh, I need to select it at the top. Okay, that's a bit counterintuitive. I would suggest making an action from the table rather than making me go all the way up the top. So the 9 mm in March. Oh, maybe that's 900 million, but in the text table it says 1,000 million, so a billion.
Yeah, we probably don't dwell too much on it, but it is a bit confusing, because it would be really helpful if that text table had it perhaps year on column, so you could just make that text comparison and say, okay, that's that, and now I can see that the bar chart is just visualizing that number shift. That would be cool, because at the moment I feel like I'm a bit in the dark.
Yeah, I agree. I think in general, so the bar chart also, it goes right to left because we're in like negative territory. But maybe it could just, why not have it go left to right? Because it says lost export value. So we know, or it could maybe be described in a way that makes it very obvious, this is how much they're missing out on, and just have a normal bar chart, which is, I think, much easier to read.
I quite like the fact it goes to the left, to be honest, because it really reinforces this is bad. It's off your normal way of looking at it, so it makes you look twice. So I quite like that.
Yeah. Okay. I think.
So Yash Raj Sakuja next.
Yep. Let's have a look. Oh, and I know this is not really a place for politics, but I hope that everyone who's here from the US has already voted or is going to vote very, very soon. We all need you to please vote and put the world back in order.
Yes, please. There's only one way, isn't there?
Yeah.
So, effect of COVID-19 on apparel exports to the United States. So, first of all, I don't like this mix of uppercase, lowercase, capitalizing some letters and not others. So, it looks like it can't make its mind up. So, first thing I would do is make sure your title is organized and consistent. So, it sounds like a really strange thing to pick up on, but it's like quite jarring. So then we've got good summary underneath, and then again Yash has focused on this difference between the countries with strong or weak lockdowns, which is good, because we've seen it's a relevant thing. I'm finding it's it's quite bright and it's quite color heavy, and because of the dark background, it sort of makes that even more pronounced. So it's confusing me, actually, because when we've got this section for countries with no or weak partial lockdowns, you've got that sort of horizontal line which almost implies that the two columns underneath just relate to those countries, but they don't, because you've got March, April, May and June going across the page. So you would almost imagine that only Vietnam, Bangladesh and Nicaragua would be in each of those first two slope charts, but they're not. So I think that's a layout consideration that Yash might need to think about, because I like the idea of separating them into these lockdown severities, but it does clash with what's what's underneath it.
Yeah.
And then just little details like the big numbers, just put a dollar sign in front because it just reinforces what the metric is. Yeah, that's kind of all I've got.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that line of total change, I find it valuable, but it disrupts me from the color legend into the actual chart where the colors are applied. So you could consider taking the color legend and making it, putting it below the chart, because then it's actually closer to all those colors. So yeah, and I think you could even have the color legend kind of, no, not really, I don't know. But the tooltip, I just hovered, make sure there's a line break because it's really wide. You should just force it to be more like a block, like a compact block, by making some line breaks in there. And maybe not everything being red, that's a dynamic field, because that, you could change that to making it the color of the actual line, so to reinforce that.
Yeah. Okay, Ryan, I quite like this one. So sometimes I was organised with my selection this week, and I really like the simplicity of this, because when you see the number at the top like that, that's a load of zeros, isn't it?
That's a lot of zeros for sure.
It's a lot of zeros, and it makes you realise, because Andy touched on this when he did his Watch Me Viz session, just how utterly wrong this whole situation is with this. And he described it in words that I probably won't describe here, but yeah, it's like, it's not a very good practice. And when you see that value at the top and you see those percentages in each of those t-shirts, which I think is quite a nice touch, it really hits home, because this is massively impactful in these countries. So I don't know what brands specifically were in this, but they're hugely rich corporations benefiting from questionable practice, and it doesn't really you don't get a sense of the people impact of it. And stuff like this, I like. It's kind of infographic style, and it's very simple to read. So it doesn't necessarily, it's not using size or bars or anything like that to quantify the impact of stuff, but it's just very simple. So I've got no real constructive do this, do that to perhaps make it better, but I just thought it was a good, effective way of doing it.
Yeah, one thing, okay, so as I zoom in, what I find really interesting is that the font on the left side in the box stays super sharp. The text in the icons and below the big number, like all the country names and the total dollar decline line, that gets really fuzzy, and I don't know why. I really don't understand.
No, I can see what you mean.
I'm zooming in because I want to make sure everyone can see it easily. I'm not sure why that is, but regardless, I think it's a great viz. And what we also need to keep in mind that this is in US dollars, and in all those countries, I mean, $1 goes a lot further than it would in the US or here in Europe. So the impact, if you say, well, maybe this village lost, I don't know, let's just make up a number, it lost $1 million in that time period, it's like, or that city, that's probably a lot worse than if one of our cities that we all live in lost $1 million. So admittedly, I haven't read through all of it yet, because the text, because I just haven't done my viz, but it's it's terrible. And I know that when Andy first looked at the viz, he's like, it's the story behind it is really sad, and yeah, he's right.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's a really good viz, Ryan. So we've got another first timer. So Darren Fong is up next.
Very good. We like the first timers joining us, and hopefully he's got time to dial in as well.
So Darren has done the thing which we often look at, and he's incorporated a map. So every week we say if you've got a geographic thing, you don't necessarily have to use geography to present the data. So in this case, it's just a very big filter. So there's viz and tooltips on there, so we can see month by country the sort of monthly trend, and then we've got the overall value lost in the bar charts underneath. So it works. It's a very space hungry way of filtering information. I don't know that knowing the shape of El Salvador or Honduras helps me, and I don't know that focusing just on them without the context of the rest of the globe adds any real value either to me either. So I'd say maybe I'd say definitely that there's no real need to use maps as a filter. But I think you can probably get a better compromise of just using these bars for the overall value lost, and perhaps have the viz and tooltips buried within those bars instead, and lose the map. I just think it would be a lot more compact.
Yeah, I think this is a really cool effort for his first Makeover Monday viz. I agree with your assessment of the maps, and one tip would be to completely remove those map controls, because now they're kind of stuck behind the text on the left for me. Another point is that, the Asia map is all in one place, but then Central America is zoomed in to also fill an equal amount of space, but these countries are much, much smaller especially when you compare them to India. So that might look it does look a bit weird to me. And I also find, and that's personal, for not looking at the map of, the Americas too much, but I just find without the context, like Charlie mentioned, it's a bit hard to just kind of recognize them and kind of jump at it. I would suggest to at least have the first word capitalized in the title. It looks a bit odd that it's all lowercase. It's almost like I'm missing something. And then the bar chart has a really strange font. It's completely different from the rest. So I'm not sure if that was the whole font and then the other stuff got changed. But on the right side of the bar chart, EU markets is strangely capitalized. So a bit of tidy up here just to make sure that things are consistent is really good.
Yeah, and the pay up hashtag thing is the kind of, I'm hopeful, I'm sure I probably chose one later on, is the kind of the core of this. So when we've seen this uptick in June, it's all because of this pay up initiative. So hopefully we'll get to one later which touches on that a bit more. Yeah,
and maybe that could be a call to action. Like if there's an initiative behind it, maybe link that hashtag to a website where people can find out more. Include that. Okay. All right. Next we have Kevin.
So this is another name that I don't remember having before, so I've tried to include quite a lot of new names this week.
Excellent. I think the collection with the hashtag gets bigger and bigger, like every week. There's so many people use it now that coming up with this collection of the visits we're going to talk about is not that easy anymore.
So Kevin said, I use step line charts with shaded areas to visualize the loss. So order collapse in the COVID-19 pandemic resulted in massive trade loss for the supplier countries. So again, I'll whinge about using case and capitalizing stuff. It's just, you see it's quite often on just social media and just like headlines on newspapers, and it just looks a bit weird to me. I don't know if I was taught a very long time ago at school, but it just looks a bit strange to me. So I'd rather it was kind of normal case. I like the layout. It's quite common, this layout now, isn't it? This panel of detail to the left, and it works.
It does.
So massive trade loss in pink. Good big numbers at the top. Vietnam is there. Okay. So yeah, you've got that anomaly of Vietnam doing relatively all right in March, and then you can see these big drops everywhere else. I wonder if those... See, I don't call this a step line chart. It's just like a Gantt chart with stuff filled in between. Well, that's how it looks to me. I wonder if the black lines for Okay, so on the first chart, you can see the black line for 2019 is labelled, and the sort of pinky red is called out for 2020. So that acts as a legend. So that's pretty good. I like it actually. It looks a bit like sort of a bit Financial Timesy, probably just because of the pink gets in my head. I think it works quite well because you get that common scale which the original didn't have. Mm-hmm. You can see that progressive drop and slight recovery in June for each country. You get that sense of difference for like Vietnam compared to the other countries, because there is a huge amount of their sort of their production of stuff in Vietnam clearly is exported to America. So I think it allows loads of comparisons across countries, across months. It's pretty efficient.
Yeah, I think what I would introduce is a little bit more space above the chart, because it's so, it's kind of squished under the title. So just a bit more vertical space, because I think you have space. If I zoom out, if I zoom out to 100%, there's plenty of space around. The one thing I kind of miss in this type of chart is that the loss is very prominent, but it doesn't really show so well the before, because it's just those little black short lines. But of course we're focusing on the loss, so that's fine. It's just I'm not getting the magnitude of 2019. I'm getting the magnitude of the loss.
Yeah, and I think real nitpicky bits are. It looks like the font in the Vietnam months is bold, whereas the rest aren't. So it looks like that to my eyes. And then there's a slight padding issue between the main chart and the big numbers above. So get rid of that 4 pixel outer padding to get everything to line up beautifully, or you could remove these column dividers from the top section just to make everything just look that little bit neater. Yeah,
I'd also make the excess labels not bold, because they're very prominent because they're black. And then on the left, where Kevin, where you say a grey shade and then a pink shade, what you could do is actually take float a grey, like a blank or a text box that you shade in that grey, and float it behind this text and make the text box transparent, so that basically the text is shaded, and then you can get rid of that ASCII symbol.
Yeah,
it stands out a bit more.
Yeah, it's good work.
Okay. Yep. Absolutely. And then we have Anna, and Anna was, I think we had her last week as well in our Vis review. Oh, and Kevin is online right now. I always wonder, Charlie, how it is to actually have your chart reviewed and listen to people live, because I've obviously never had it because I'm always doing the reviewing.
Well, hopefully it's all right. We always aim to be constructive, and I think we've had a good selection so far this week, where everything's been actually good and needed just minimal little tweaks and considerations to improve it.
Yeah.
So for this, Anna she used a specific word. What do you call it? A volume dial chart, which is not something I've heard of before. I just call that dots on lines, but volume dial sounds all right.
Snakes on a plane?
Yeah. Let's call it that. Well, I don't know that works. So we've got snakes on a plane for Bangladesh for March 2019 versus 2020. So we can see it's kind of like a fractional difference. Actually, this is quite interesting, because Vietnam has such high values. It means that those comparisons for Bangladesh, particularly in March, there's not really that much difference between them, because you lose that scale or magnitude of difference just because the Vietnam numbers are so big. So I do wonder if this is as effective as it could be, because it is definitely diluted by that Vietnam stuff.
So I think there's only one thing I really want to say about this one. When I read apparel exports to the US drop, my first thought when I hear drop is vertical, and then I'm seeing a horizontal chart. So I would love to have this title translated into literally a visible drop that goes from the top to the bottom, or whatever the case may be. So I think be mindful of the associations of your title and what that maybe triggers with people, because and And if you want to stick with the viz, perfectly fine. Maybe just change the title to, like moves back or dials back or something that is more the language of this kind of chart.
Yeah, no, I think you're totally right, because we've had a couple of examples where kind of like all the information is shown, or all the information is shown multiple times, and actually for this to be tied into the title would be really good, because you could just literally show what is the overall drop for Bangladesh, or what is the drop for Bangladesh by year on year within each month. So you would have those drops coming down, and I immediately think of that Iraq's bloody toll viz again, which everyone gets. And because these tables to the right are quite superfluous, it's just the same information presented again. So you could just focus on those year-on-year monthly trends within country dropping down the page because they're negative values, and I think it would be a lot more coherent and would fit the title.
Okay, excellent. So Agatha messaged on the live chat that she sees her viz coming up, and she's going to tell me what it feels like to receive feedback live.
Well, she's going to be very happy, because
this is beautiful.
I include this for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's really good because Agatha does stuff and it's always really good. And I've already said bar and bar charts are excellent, because
she's done the shading, she's done the button. It's like she's read our minds.
I know, and that is coincidental because I'm not that good at thinking in advance. But one thing I wanted to touch on, and it's because I'm a bit strange about things, is so Agatha's used Figma for this. So that whole top section and unpaid billions and this sort of, I don't know what we're calling this, inline text or something, I can't remember, where you've got that shading behind 2020 and 2019. So all that bit's Figma, and then you've got Tableau floated on the top of it, and it looks amazing. And I don't know if I'm just old-fashioned, lazy, stuck in my ways, probably all of it, but I personally don't like combining different tools, and it's the wrong way to be, because obviously Tableau's got deficiencies and Power BI's got deficiencies, Data Studio, they've all got deficiencies, and Figma seems to be like flavour of the month at the moment in the Tableau community for sort of papering over the cracks within Tableau's design capabilities. Have you fiddled with it yet?
I have not. At the moment, I'm obsessed with Canva. I'm still kind of in 2019. So what I don't understand, maybe you can help me out. So she's done stuff in Figma, and it's then a background image?
Yeah, it creates a PNG, which is like the background image, and then all the Tableau stuff, I'm assuming, is going to be floated over the top of it. So the bar and the values to the left is probably one chart, or maybe it's two, and then you've probably got a text box at the bottom, and that button's probably a floated thing too.
I need to check this out. Let's have a quick peek at what she actually created there, because I'm curious. I understand you saying I don't really want to combine tools, because I'm also a bit like, I want everything to be good in one tool, and exactly. I think Tableau is, we have pestered them about formatting for a long time. Aha. Oh, she's using the grid too.
I started using grids. I finally remembered that was introduced about 2 years ago.
Okay, so Figma is the top bit and the bottom bit. Okay, and then so how did she do the text in the chart? That must just be top left alignment.
Yeah. So I think it's just general bar, and then one of the, because they're dual axis, one of them must have here's a label.
Very good. And the button is an image, because of course that needs to be kind of dynamic. Otherwise she could have made the button in Figma and then floated a blank element that has the hyperlink.
Yeah.
Interesting. I have not played with Figma. I do think so. I guess my opinion here is, like you say, there will be, things that a tool doesn't do that well, and I understand people's desire to kind of cover that or address that. I think it's great for, these kind of visualizations where you build your portfolio, where you want to show something, you want to show your skills, and I mean, Agatha has serious database skills, there's no doubt about that. Where I think that approach won't work is in business, where things need to be maintained and updated, because if someone always have to update two tools, then that's going to be a bit of a pain. But it could, I mean, hopefully that is a bit of encouragement also to the dev team to maybe bring some more formatting capabilities into Tableau. What I would love to see is if Tableau could format like PowerPoint.
Yeah, and you look at it and think this should be easy, surely. But I mean, obviously, PowerPoint's like decades old and has evolved over time, so it's obviously not that easy. But it's got to be easier than actually all the clever charty VisQL crazy stuff. So, yeah, I'd like them to step up as well.
Yeah. Even things like, format painter and those kind of things would be fantastic. So, I mean, good for you, Agatha, for putting this together. I wonder why do this in Figma? Because with a bit of fudging, you could probably do those elements in Tableau, right? Might not be as fast, admittedly.
Yeah, it would just be annoying, wouldn't it? Because you'd have to float a strangely sized text box and fill it pink to get that vertical line, and so there'd be a lot of faff. It's probably quicker.
That is true. Because it probably in Figma you might have those elements already, and you just kind of snap, put the content in, and be done with it, kind of thing.
Yeah. But it's a cool viz. Principally, so it wasn't just me asking about Figma. I just think it's perfect. Like, it's so clean, so crisp, good colours, perfect. Every week, Agatha, good stuff.
Nice. Okay. I'm going to bring up the next, and then I'm going to just quickly check out the live chat while I let you have a start with
Jana Homovic now. So this one I included for a very specific reason, and it was that everything looks the same, so you get no real sense of anything. So I couldn't tell if the circles were they're not being positioned based on value because they're pretty much all at the same level. They're not being positioned based on the year-on-year percentage difference or value difference. So it just looks like a series of pretty much the same circles on what looks like pretty much the same axis. So it's kind of
each country almost looks like it's doing the same thing, right?
Yeah. So it's visualizing data, but in a way that doesn't give you that magnitude of difference between stuff. It's kind of like a uniform thing. So you can see there's slight differences. So like Vietnam's not as pronounced a drop off, but it just looks a bit too samey. So I suspect we've got independent axes for each country, that's the solution, isn't it? Basically, have consistent axes for everything. But because the circles are so big and because Vietnam's got such a high value, doing that will mean that El Salvador has these horribly squished little circles side by side. So if you have to compromise on your axes to make the chart work, then it says to me that the chart's probably wrong. So I would just, maybe you could almost just do this as a slope chart. So was the year-on-year value with just the 6 lines on the slope chart to show the movement for each country.
Yeah. Okay. So Agatha commented that she really likes the fonts in Figma and being able to use lots of different fonts and stuff. And apparently it's free. So now
Andy's rocked up to disrupt stuff now.
Oh dear.
He's been very professional till now. So he's complaining that it's dark outside at 10 to 5, and he's right, and I don't know why. I read about this actually, and it was only implemented about 100 years ago. I can't remember exactly why. I think it was a Belgian or someone like that complained.
Well, because I thought, the story I heard was it's so that people could literally save daylight in summer, but it's like, well, we all have lights now. We can do whatever kind of thing. But anyway, Denise said it's National Chocolate Day today. But is it? But if it's National Chocolate Day, that's probably in the US.
Yeah, well, I can do that because I watched American programs, so.
Yeah, and you can do like a block of chocolate in one sitting, can't you?
Yeah. No, I've had a triple chocolate muffin earlier. It was amazing.
Oh my God.
It was amazing. Right, let's move on to Idris. So this is a name that I don't remember from prior weeks.
I'm not sure. Yeah. I understand where they're going with the black and white, but I'm not sure it works for me because it's such a strong contrast. But for me, it's like, okay, if it's black and white, I kind of think, oh, on the black side, I will see the bad thing, and on the white side, I might see the good thing. But it's just on the black side, there's the text, and on the white side, there's the chart.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree. And I think the size of it looks a bit strange as well, because there's an awful lot of black space rather than white space in that black panel. Whereas if everything was a bit narrower, then it would fill like the space vertically a little bit better. But what we've got is basically like a vertical barbell chart showing the difference month on month for each country. So the first thing that stands out for me is just need to move the marks for the circles to the front. So just literally right click that y-axis and move it depends which order he put them on, but move those circles to the front. There's a couple of decimal places for the percent change, which again, it's very, very precise. You could get away with having no decimal places, I think, here. We've already talked a lot about this mishmash of dollar values on the y-axis, but percentages on the labels. It is confusing. So I think Eva's suggestion earlier about perhaps show the value change and then the percent change in brackets, just to soften that sort of overload of thinking. And I do wonder if the color difference between 2019 and 2020 is a bit too subtle. So it's quite a sort of grey blue. It could do with being something a little bit brighter perhaps for 2020 to make it really stand out as, wow, look how much lower this is.
Especially because they have the black outlines and the black line between, which I think makes our eyes like perceive them as darker as well.
Yeah.
And I think Andy's talking bad about Germans. So he said daylight savings time was originally concocted as a way to save energy in the evening. Yeah, I was right. And was implemented in World War I in Germany. Damn Germans. Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, but it's pointless because I'm annoyed because it is now dark and it's all irrelevant within a month anyway, so just don't mess about with it.
The thing is, though, that now is the actual time. You know, summer is the fake time, whereas now is the actual time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
right.
I know that I'm pretty sure my brother and his wife are happy because it's easier to put the kids to bed when it's dark outside than in summer when, you know, where they are, daylight is basically until 11 p.m.
Wow.
In the interest of time, I might only have time for one more. Can we jump 2 up to Liz Bravo?
Yeah, I included this one for Reese. So this is not Tableau, but I thought, what a cunning idea. So that's why I've included it.
Yes, that's what I thought too. So let me zoom in. Ooh, that was a big zoom.
It's amazing. So I'm an expert dressmaker, but I do know from memory. So when I was a kid, I think my mum used to make us stuff. And they all had these sort of, I don't know what they're called, but it's like knitting patterns or dressmaking patterns. And it's quite an abstract idea in terms of that shaded area representing what 2019 was. But I think it's absolutely brilliant. I have no idea how she's done it. I just think it's absolutely incredible. So creative.
It's very, I can't think of the name now. The lady who does data art and who has a permanent exhibition in MoMA.
I can't help you there.
She's one of those two that did Dear Data.
Oh, is it Naledi Bremner? No, someone Bremner?
No, the other one.
Don't do that. Someone will know on the chat.
Yeah, Andy will know.
It starts with Pos, someone Pozinek or something like that.
Yeah, and it's not that one. And there's one more. And I I looked up her stuff yesterday. I can't believe I can't think of the name. But this is super, super cool. And I just saw the small image earlier today.
Georgia Lupi needs to represent.
Of course, Georgia Lupi.
Lisa wins a prize. Yeah, but isn't it cool? I just think it's an incredible way of doing it. So
it's like, I mean, at first I thought, it's just showing things overall. But then when I looked at it in detail, I'm like, every single line has numbers, and it's like there's so much going on, and it's so cool. So, I mean, this is super impressive. Yeah,
I'd love to know what tool she's done it in, but it's just mad. So yeah, well done, Liz, because I think it's probably the most creative thing I've seen since Samo's popcorn chart, and that must be 2 or 3 years ago.
And that popcorn chart is also somewhere on Tableau Public as like a, just a kind of stock image kind of thing. So she said, yeah, she didn't. Maybe did someone ask by any chance? Oh. No, we have to find out how she did this. It's really, really cool. Well done. Bravo to Liz Bravo.
Nice. Well done.
Okay, I think we've got a call time here. I've got to get on my bike,
Cool.
and burn some calories, make some room for dinner.
Okay, yeah, good plan. I need to probably do that after my muffin.
See you on Swift, Charlie. Let me bring us back on the screen for a moment. So things
validate the darkness statement. Look, it's sort of
it's very
darkish.
dark. I mean, it's even darker here. Let me show you if that works.
See, I'm like an hour south or so that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. So hope everyone had fun and enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed the chat when I could see it. It's on the other screen. And then we'll be back here next week. So next week we're going to do Viz 5, and we realized what a week to do Viz 5 because it's also the American election. So we hope that everyone will still be with us for a bit of reprieve from political stuff.
Yeah, there should be. I think 70 million have voted already, so everyone's got time. So vote this week, get it done, and then join us next week.
Absolutely. And looking for, I mean, it's almost November now, and we're going to start November together. 1st of November, we're going to kick things off. Cool. Okay, everyone, take care, and we'll see you again soon.
All right. See you all later.